he took me out for dinner, and he was highly amused. He said, "Do you realize why I'm sitting here?" And I said, "Because, you know, you're using the image and I presume you want my permission." He said, "No, I just wanted to meet the only living artist that's left of the 10 great iconic creators." So I'm still around and I got a free meal, you know. Anyway, sorry, you wanted to ask me a question down there? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The night you met him in the hotel.
The night I met him in the hotel? It was daytime after Mass. No. People think that I sort of took out my sketchbook. At that age, I was a grossly incompetent artist. I have children. My youngest son worked for Steven Spielberg for 7 years. He's now setting up a university of cartooning and animation and everything up in Belfast in the College of Art. He's a genius. When he was 15, he could draw things that I could work from. So I would do all these Celtic gods and goddesses, and he'd say to me, "Dad, do you realise there's something wrong with these?" And I'd say, "No." He'd say, "They've no shadows." I said, "They're mystical." He said, "No." He said, "You can't draw effing shadows, you know." He showed me perspective in my drawings, and I look at them and I blanch because it's so horrific, but they look mystical. Anytime I got stuck on one of those wonderful Celtic works, I put in clouds of sort of foam and mist and all kinds of stuff. So if there's feet missing, or I did one only a couple of years ago of Finn McCool chucking this big massive rock, and I had a hand back to front. You have no idea. I'm not a trained artist. I just do everything that's in my head, you know. So arms and legs come all kinds of directions, you know. So he's good at fixing that, you know. But anyway, sorry, to get back to Shay. I met him here in Kilkee, but I hadn't the artistic skills to even do anything about that, even if I wanted to. If I'd had a camera, I would have taken it, but nobody took photographs in those days, and none of us had cameras. But later, when I did the first version, I did a kind of a quasi-psychedelic version to cover up two things. One, my lack of ability. Two, the fact that I hadn't got a good reference, I hadn't got a good photograph. By the time I got the red and black one done, I had an actual copy of the Corda photograph that was precise, and I could really go to town on that. By that stage, after 3 or 4 years, I had become a very fine, trained advertising artist with all sort of grown-up people, you might say, around me who could tell me, "Don't do this, don't do that." But at that stage, I was getting good, and I knew it. So when I did that for that exhibition, I knew what I was doing. I gave him an upward gaze that I think came from the fact that I was so used to looking at sort of Catholic iconography, the upward gaze of the saints, of St. Francis of Assisi in particular, who was in our National Museum by El Greco. It's latent itself and transmuted itself into this imagery I was creating. And I was influenced by Art Nouveau, and I gave him that curly sort of wind-blown hair. That was another effect that I added subconsciously sometimes, but sometimes I think, was I really consciously doing that? Probably, you know. And I created an icon, and the reason the icon has stayed in our lives so long, I think, is the fact that he was very beautiful, he was very inspirational, and I hope I did something that would make him allow him to be remembered forever, you know. Sorry. He was better looking than my picture. There's if any of you want to see Che Guevara in action, go to RTE Real Player. Go to the website, look for Che Guevara. You'll find Che Guevara in Dublin, and in it he's talking to an Irish air hostess who's the very first person to buy the print. She lives up in Howth. I've never met her, but she got a friend of hers to approach me to buy one because she heard I was doing it. She was the very beautiful girl in that video. You'll see it, and he is, I won't say he's pretending he doesn't understand English. He's pretending he has no English. And she's the translator, and at one point he actually corrects her English in Spanish. And she said, we did it separately, but in the same program, we did an Italian documentary about 5 years ago, and she said, "I think he was flirting with me." And if you saw the video, you could draw your own conclusions. He's very charming, very sort of Latin, but also very Irish, you know. He was about the same height. Colin Farrell's a friend of mine, as I've said, and I always compare him to Colin. Colin is about that much. I'd say 5'8". Now that's just a guess. I know I'm taller than him. I mean, even then I was 6'1". I'm 6'2" now, you know. Still growing. Anybody else?
Would you see any parallel between him and the old Irish heroes like Cullen and McGuiness?
I knew you were going to ask me that. You nailed me the other day, or yesterday, wasn't it? Yes. No, I do, of course. I mean, that idea coursed through my head. I was thinking really of Thomas McSweeney and people like that rather than Cullen. But Cullen is a very difficult subject to deal with always. He had this philosophy that it was better to live one glorious shooting star blazing across the sky than a permanent light that just flickers and dims. And Philip Lynott had that in him too, because we did an album together that I wrote the sleeve notes for called Black Rose, and we mentioned that particular imagery. And I think it's a very Irish thing. And obviously Che Guevara followed that line. If you listen to his father has spoken many times about him, and on the Cuba support group website they have it about the blood of an Irish revolutionary flowing through his veins. And I think that parallel with mythology is very important, because we don't want Che to become totally mythologized, but on the other hand, we have no choice. In Latin America, he's regarded as a saint in many places, San Che. And in, 5 years ago, the Archbishop of La Paz had to ask the people not to worship him as a saint. He was a saintly man, but that doesn't make him a saint. Being a communist is also an obstacle. Anyway.
Jim, were you moved when you saw some of the protesters in the various Arab Spring uprisings wearing the t-shirt?
Oh, absolutely. I'm well aware of it. I know some of them. I know some of the Libyan people, the Libyan leaders. And you learn, what was it? Albert Camus, the philosopher, said, everything I learned about life I learned from playing football. I've been playing football up to 9 months ago. I had to give up because they gave up on me, the game collapsed. But I met so many of these Libyans and Arabs and refugees and all these different people because we relied on them for our football game. And I think about 10 of the Irish Libyans are now pretty well running the show over there. The head of security is an Irish Libyan, but born in Libya. But he's brought his entire extended family with him. And they were the Guardian, I can't remember, Simon Jensen, one of them wrote a great article about him, or about the leadership lounging in Che Guevara t-shirts where they discussed the great issues of the day and how to reconstruct a democracy like Turkey in a country like Libya that hasn't known democracy for 40 years. So I'm very proud of that. In Tahrir Square, I have photographs of some of the protesters wearing that t-shirt, and I love it. I'd like to see it used everywhere where there's freedom, where freedom is wanted,
On the hotel register, he didn't sign his name.